Hello, everyone. My name is Yongkang. I'm a lead cloud native SE of Custom by Veeam to support Asia Pacific region. By now, I'm 34 times multi-cloud certified, including CKA, CKAD, and also CKS. For those of you who are interested to join me to learn, here is a way you can follow me on with LinkedIn, Twitter, or follow my YouTube channel, or also follow me from my GitHub page. So today's topic is about how to build an elastic Kubernetes service or EKS cluster on AWS. Let's get started. So there are many ways to create an EKS cluster. You can either create it from a AWS Cloud or Web Console, or could be created by the CloudFormation. And also, could be Terraform. Yeah, you might like the infrastructure as a code or, automation. And if you prefer the command line, AWS have their own, CLI, or you can use the EKS CTL command line. So if you're using AWS CLI, that's AWS EKS create a dash cluster. EKS, it's the EKS CTL create a cluster. Or you might use the KOps. Yeah, KOps create a cluster to create the EKS cluster. Today, I'm going to show you how to create the AWS, create the EKS cluster by the Web Console, okay? So here are the steps, high-level steps, how to build an EKS cluster. First of all, there is a little bit of preparation tasks. And then followed by, you need to create an EKS cluster control plane first. And then you have to create a node group. It's not going to create automatically. So basically 2 subtasks once you prepare the environment. So here are the preparation tasks you need to do. So first of all, obviously, you need to have an AWS Cloud account with enough permissions. And you need to have a web browser. And once you have these, you just log into the Web Console. You create an Amazon EKS cluster rule first. That is very important. Without the cluster rule, you can't create the cluster. Okay, and you need to have the right policy. Minimum, you need to have the Amazon EKS cluster policy attached to this EKS cluster rule. And also, you need to create an Amazon EKS node IAM rule. And in this IAM rule, you need to attach 3 policies: Amazon EKS workload policy, Amazon EC2 container registry read-only policy, and plus Amazon EKS CNI policy. Yeah, once you've done this, you're ready to go. Okay, here I will give a live demo how to create the EKS cluster. So how to create IAM rules, how to create the EKS cluster, followed by create a node group. Okay, let's get started. I will log into the Web Console. So I'm actually already logged into the Web Console, and I'm in the page of the Amazon EKS cluster. So if you are not in this page, you can click the services from containers. You can see there is a something like a elastic Kubernetes. You can click the star to favorite the service. Or once you favorite the service, you can click Elastic Kubernetes service from your dashboard. So now I'm in the page. So first task I need to do is, before you can actually create the cluster, you need to create the related EKS cluster rules. And so let me click the IAM. So I click IAM. And once I load it, I click the left side, select the rules. And from here, I click create a new rule. And obviously, you need to select the EKS. I select the EKS cluster, and then you can click next permissions. So we already have the right policy, Amazon EKS cluster policy attached to this rule. So next, I don't want to create a tag for now. Click next review. You give a name. Let's say cluster rule, EKS cluster rule. Okay, let's say EKS cluster rule 1. That's it. So once I click here, create a rule, we will create this rule. Actually, let me come back to the last page, the add a cluster. So let me start from adding a cluster. I will create a cluster, but you also have another option to register existing cluster. Could be from EKS anywhere or some other clusters. So I'm going to go ahead and click create. I give a name EKS for Yongkang. And if you want, by default, it's 1.21, but you can customize, choose a different version. But before you can click next, there is a service say cluster service rule. Do you have a cluster rule? I don't have one yet. So that's why I need to create the rule first. So I go to IAM page. I will go ahead and click create a rule. So once I created the rule, so you can find your EKS cluster rule. This is your rule. If you want to verify, click the cluster rule name. You can see here is an attached policy, Amazon EKS cluster policy. Now I can come back to the web console to create the cluster. It wasn't listed here. Click the refresh, and you will see the rule listed here. Okay, select this rule. Now you can, if you want, you can optionally add some tags. But for now, let me just click next. So if you don't have a VPC, obviously, you need to create a VPC first. I might just use my default VPC. And my subnet's also selected. And the service group, security group, I choose my default one as well. And what else? Yeah, you can choose cluster endpoint access. I want to be able to access publicly, so I choose public. Makes it easier for me to run the testing, okay? So the rest of the information, networking add-ons, Amazon VPC, CNI, by default, you already choose the latest version. I don't need to customize these. And the core DNS, also latest version selected. And the kube proxy, also latest version selected. Click next. So now you can optionally to choose to enable the logging. For the testing purpose, I don't really want to enable the logging. So I skip this, click next, and specify networking, give you a summary of what you configure. Now I can create the cluster, okay? I'm going to create the cluster now. While we are creating the cluster, I still need to create another node IAM rules. So once the cluster is ready, actually, the next step is you're going to create a node group. Before you can create the node group, you actually also need to create another rule. So now I'm going, while we're waiting for the cluster is in creating, and I will create another rule. Let's say create a rule. Now we're going to create a rule. The rule is the node IAM rule. So for the node IAM rule, if you can remember, if I come back to the slide deck, you can see when you're going to create the EKS node IAM rule, you need to attach the Amazon EKS workload policy. You need to attach EC2 container registry read-only policy and also EKS CNI policy. Okay, come back to the web console. I will create the rule. Okay, when I create the node IAM rule, I select the EC2 and then click next permissions. I need to search the right policy and then attach that policy. The first one we need is a workload policy. So I tick this box, and the second one is container registry, read only is enough. Amazon EC2 container registry, read only. And the last one is the EKS CNI policy. And once I select all of these, you can click next. If you want, you can ignore the tags for now. Next, I'm going to review the rule. So let's say EKS node rule. Okay, And make sure, double check in the right policy selected. The first one, Amazon EKS workload policy. Second one, container registry read-only policy. And the third one, EKS CNI policy. So I'm going to click create rule to create the right rule for node group. Okay, your rule has been created successfully. If you want to verify, you can search EKS. You can find the EKS-node-rule1. Click the rule name. You can verify, just double confirm your right policy attached to this particular rules. Yeah, it seems it is correct. So now let me come back to the cluster creation page. Let me zoom a little bit. Let's see how it goes. Do a refresh. It's still creating. I don't want you guys wait. Let me pause. Okay, I just did a refresh and now the cluster is active. And if you want, you might have noticed, yeah, the total time it took around 30 minutes. The cluster is ready. But remember, I mentioned earlier. So once you create the EKS cluster, you only actually created a control plane. There is no node created yet. So the next step is we're going to create a node group. So now let me come back to the web console. And from here, under the compute here, so you can click add a node group and you give a name. Let's say node for Yongkang. And also you need to select the rule. So remember before, a few minutes ago, we just created a node RM rule. It's called EKS-node-rule1. If you don't have this rule created, you won't be able to move to next step. Okay, we already created the rule. Select this rule. And now if you want, you can choose add additional labels or tags. I just skip all of these, click next. So which AMI image type you're going to use? I might just use the default Amazon Linux 2, but you can also choose the GPU enabled or ARM-based machines or Rocky. I just use the default one. In a capacity type, I use the on-demand, but you can choose the spot instance type as well. So for the instance type, for the testing purpose, probably T3 medium is enough, but you can choose any one of the instance type you like. I typically choose the for CPU, 16 GB memory. Otherwise, if you're running some application, you might have ended up you're running out of the CPU or memory. So if you choose the T3, actually the T3, the one comes with T3A large actually should be enough. Yeah, the T3A X large, you got a 4 CPU, you got a 16 GB memory. That's more than enough for your testing purposes. So I choose this one. The disk size, I just leave it as a default. And the node group scaling policy. What are the minimum nodes? For the testing, I just choose minimum 1 is enough. My desired size, 1 is enough. But you can actually make it 0 to save cost. If you're not going to use, you can scale down to 0 for the desired size and also minimum size. But for now, let me make the minimum size 1 and the desired size also 1, maximum 2 nodes, okay? And yeah, if you want, you can choose some advanced settings like maximum unavailable when you're going to do the upgrade, but I leave it as a default in 1 node. Click next. So which subnets? Yeah, by default, it already comes with the same subnet, which I use to create the EKS cluster. I don't need to configure SSH access to the nodes for now. Click next. Okay, just give you some additional information. Review and create. So once you review, make sure everything is good, you click create. Okay. This step, it also takes about, probably around just under 10 minutes. So let's see. I don't want to wait, so I might pause until the creation finish, okay? Okay, let's continue. I just did a refresh and you can see the status now active. This is for the node group. Remember, we have one single node right now. And if I move down to the screen, you can see the node group created 3 minutes ago. So now let me come back to my slide deck. So we already created the IAM rule, created EKS cluster control plane. We already created node group. Now let's verify if the EKS cluster is up running. Okay, so first of all, you need to retrieve the EKS kubeconfig file. And before you can actually run in the, verify if the cluster is running. So this is a command, EKS utils, right dash kubeconfig dash cluster followed by the cluster name. If you are not running in the same region, you might need to add the dash region. Okay, once you retrieve the EKS kubeconfig, you can verify the cluster status via the command kubectl cluster information or kubectl get node to say how many nodes you have. So let me come back to the web console, and I'm going to launch a Cloud Shell. Okay, so somehow it was disconnected in the Cloud Shell. By the way, I'm running the EKS AWS on my personal account. That's why you see my ID here, and I was running in the Sydney region. Okay, once this Cloud Shell connected, so I will run this command. Let me copy the command now. Let me copy this command. So EKS CTL utils. Okay, looks like the Cloud Shell takes a little bit while to load. Let's wait a few more seconds. Okay, it's ready. So if I'm going to run kube control cluster information, it doesn't give you anything because you don't have the kube configure file. So now I'm going to copy this command. So EKS CTL utils write kube configure. So we're going to write the kube configure file. Yeah, the dash somehow, if I copy, it removed. So this is the right command dash cluster. So now it says the kube configure already saved to your home directory under .kube/configure. So now if I'm going to run the same command, kube configure cluster information, you can see it connected to my EKS cluster. This is my EKS cluster. And if I'm going to run kubectl get nodes, you can see this is my cluster work node. Right now, I only have one node. It's running the version 1.21.5. It's on EKS. Okay. So we already have a running cluster. Now it's your choice. How you are going to deploy the application or database into the cluster. So for the purpose of this particular session, I'm only focusing on how to build the cluster for you ready to use. Okay. So here is a few reference links. If you're not sure how to create the EKS cluster IAM rule, here is a link from our Amazon website. And here's another link, how to create the IAM rule and how to create the EKS cluster, okay? And if you're interested to use the automation, I make my, automation scripts publicly available from a GitHub page. Here is a link to the automation source code. And also here is a link to including the how-to guide. So basically you just need to run one command in about 20 minutes. So we're going to create an EKS cluster plus deploy Cassandra database plus install custom K10. That's the #1 Kubernetes backup DR and also application mobility software. So you can learn how the backup works, how the restore works, how the disaster recovery or application mobility works. Okay, there is a little bit additional information also included here. if you're interested in learn how to build the popular Kubernetes cluster, including OpenShift, could be Rosa. That's Red Hat's OpenShift service on AWS, or maybe Tanzu Kubernetes Grid, TKGM running on the multi-cloud option, or maybe ACK, that's Alibaba Cloud Container Service for Kubernetes, or ECP, that's HPE Emerald Container Platform. Okay, the first link is how to build the popular Kubernetes cluster. The second link is how to back up the containers. So once you have the cluster running, typically you only need 3 minutes to protect these containers from the popular Kubernetes cluster. The third link is about build and protect Kubernetes cluster via the automation. Right now, I've got the automation for Amazon EKS, Azure EKS, Google Cloud, GKE, and also IBM Cloud on the OpenShift side. The last one is the popular Kubernetes cluster. So that including how to build the Kubernetes cluster, how to back up the cluster. It breaks down as the Kubernetes, popular Kubernetes distribution. Could be Red Hat, it could be Amazon, could be Tanzu, could be Alibaba Cloud, etc. Yeah, that's pretty much all I want to cover for this session. Coming next, so we just build the empty cluster, right? We don't have any application database deployed. So the next session, which I'm going to cover is we're going to deploy database into the EKS cluster. And I will show you how to back up the containers running on EKS cluster and how to restore the containers in case something happened, how to quickly restore the containers running on EKS cluster. And another session about how to migrate containers. There are multiple different use cases. Could be migrate from on-premise to the cloud, could be from other cloud to AWS EKS, or could be from other Kubernetes distribution to EKS, or maybe from within AWS cloud, you want to migrate from a Singapore region, could be to the newly introduced region from Indonesia, for example. Okay, so that's pretty much all I want to cover for today. Yeah, very much appreciate your time. Thanks for watching. And if you want to connect to me, feel free to email me or follow me on LinkedIn, Twitter, or YouTube, or GitHub page. With that, thank you very much. Have a good day.